Hey, General Hospital fans. We need to talk about Drew and Ava because these two have been circling each other for a while now, and the closer they get, the messier this is about to become. What started out looking like strategy and shared grievances is beginning to feel like something a lot more dangerous. And no, I am not just talking about revenge. I am talking about chemistry, opportunity, and two people who are both angry enough, isolated enough, and ruthless enough to make a truly terrible decision together. Because let's be honest, Drew and Ava are already moving in the same direction. They are both carrying grudges. They are both feeling boxed in by enemies. They are both looking for leverage. And they are both exactly the kind of people who can convince themselves that crossing one more line is not that big a deal if it gets them what they want. So today, we're going to talk about how Drew and Ava could go from co-conspirators to something much messier, and why this partnership may be heading straight toward the bedroom whether Port Charles is ready for it or not. From the minute Ava started opening up to Drew, and the two of them began comparing notes on their respective enemies, it felt like the show was laying track for a bigger alliance. Ava has been dealing with the constant tension of co-parenting with Sunny, and that is never going to be easy. She has every reason to worry that Sunny will try to influence Avery and shape how their daughter sees her. Ava knows how powerful Sunny's reach is and how hard it is to fight him when he decides to make someone's life miserable. And from Drew's perspective, he is coming from a very similar emotional place. He knows what it feels like to believe somebody else is poisoning a child against you. He knows what it feels like to be on the outside, furious, helpless, and convinced people are talking behind your back while you are powerless to stop it. That kind of shared resentment is a bonding agent on a soap. Sometimes it does not create romance right away, but it does create intimacy. It creates that dangerous feeling of, you get me? You understand what I am up against. You know who my enemies are. That is exactly where Drew and Ava seem to be headed. And there's something else here too. Ava did not just tolerate Drew being back on his feet. She seemed genuinely pleased to see him recovered and active again. In a town where Drew has burned a lot of bridges and turned a lot of people against him, that matters. When somebody is used to cold shoulders, suspicion, and outright hostility, they notice who smiles, who listens, and who sees value in them anyway. Ava did that. She treated Drew like an asset, like an equal, like someone worth talking to instead of avoiding. That kind of validation can go a long way, especially for a character who increasingly seems to feel like he is nobody in his corner. And of course, Ava was more than happy to hear that Drew has plans involving Sunny. That alone is enough to put her on board. If there is one thing Ava is always going to find tempting, it is a chance to hit Sunny where it hurts. She may not always move impulsively, but if there is a real opportunity to undermine him, destabilize him, or gain an edge over him, she is going to listen. So, once Drew started talking in that direction, it was almost inevitable that she would lean in. The interesting part, though, is that Drew's war is not just with Sunny. Sunny may be one of the biggest names on his hit list, but Drew's resentment is spreading in all directions. He has issues with Brennan. He has unfinished rage where Willow is concerned. He has bitterness, paranoia, and a need for payback that is no longer focused on just one target. That is where Ava becomes useful in a much bigger way. She is not just a Sunny enemy. She is a willing accomplice with enough nerve to help Drew go after multiple people if the plan is good enough. And now we are seeing the next stage of that. Drew has a problem he wants solved, and Ava is clearly part of the solution. When a character starts saying things like there is an obstacle that needs to be removed, that is when you know the scheming is getting serious. Add in the fact that Drew wants Ava distracting Brennan while he searches Brennan's room, and now we are fully in caper territory. This is not just venting anymore. This is action. This is coordination. This is trust. At least as much trust as two people like Drew and Ava are ever going to give each other. What makes this even more deliciously messy is the Brennan angle. If Drew is indeed trying to get his hands on whatever Brennan is hiding, then that means he is desperate enough to take a huge risk. Brennan has dangerous information. He has leverage. He has the kind of evidence that could blow up Drew's plans or prevent him from getting the revenge he wants. And Drew hates being cornered. He hates knowing somebody else has the upper hand. So if he believes there is proof sitting in Brennan's room that could either destroy him or free him to strike back, then of course he is going to go after it. And Ava helping with that is a huge step. Because once you help someone pull off something like this, the relationship changes. It does not matter whether the plan succeeds perfectly or crashes and burns halfway through. The minute two people start conspiring in private, covering for each other, and engaging in risky behavior that could expose them both, a bond forms. It is not healthy. It is not noble. But it is intense. And intensity is exactly the kind of thing that can tip into attraction. The promo material makes this even wilder, because it looks very much like Ava may be the one handling Brennan directly, possibly even drugging his drink, to keep him out of the way. If that is what happens, then Ava is not just standing on the sidelines while Drew gets his hands dirty. She is getting her own hands dirty too. That matters. People get closer when they take risks together. People get closer when they keep each other's secrets. People get closer when they can look across a room and know they are both lying to everyone else in it. And the Nina piece of this is also fascinating because it gives Drew a possible layer of cover. Nina is already in conflict with Brennan. She is furious. She is emotional. She is clearly trying to push him one way while he is warning her to back off. If Drew overheard enough to realize Nina was making threats or stirring up drama with Brennan, then he may think he can use that chaos to his advantage. He may believe that if Brennan wakes up, realizes something is wrong, and notices his room has been searched, Brennan will suspect Nina or Willow first rather than Drew. That is exactly the kind of gamble Drew would make. He is arrogant enough to think he can stay one step ahead, and reckless enough to go for it anyway. He may tell himself that the situation is perfect. Brennan already has tension with Nina. Willow is already in the mix. Emotions are already high. So if something shady happens now, Drew probably assumes the blame will fall elsewhere. That confidence may be misplaced, but it is very much in character for where Drew is now. And Ava, for all her confidence, does still have at least one emotional hesitation. She is not stupid. She knows getting involved with Drew's revenge mission could affect her friendship with Nina. Ava has a long history in Port Charles, and one thing she does understand is that alliances always come with collateral damage. So even if she likes the thrill of helping Drew and likes the idea of sticking it to Brennan or Sonny or whoever else is on the target board, she may still worry about what this does to her personal relationships. At the same time, Ava may convince herself she is not really betraying Nina at all. If Nina and Brennan are already fighting, already strained, already heading toward a breakup or at least a Cold War, then Ava may decide she is not crossing any real line. In fact, she may tell herself she is just moving pieces on a board where the outcome was already obvious. And Ava is very good at justifying morally shady choices if she sees a larger benefit for herself. There is also a spoiler beat about Ava feeling slighted, and I really do wonder whether some of that starts creeping into the dynamic between her and Drew. Because while Ava is willing to help, she is not the type to enjoy feeling used. If she gets the sense that Drew only wants her around when she is convenient, or only sees her as a tool to distract Brennan while his real focus is elsewhere, then that could irritate her. Ava likes being needed, but she does not like being minimized. So if Drew is not careful, that frustration could spark conflict. But honestly, conflict might only make the chemistry stronger. Because these are not two people who need sweetness and stability to feel drawn together. They are two people who might respond even more to danger, sniping, and tension. If this first job pulls them closer, then the next step almost writes itself. They will have a secret together. They will have shared adrenaline. They will have that post-scheme energy where one thing went wrong, three things almost exploded, but they somehow got through it as a team. And that is exactly the kind of atmosphere where characters end up staring at each other a little too long, standing a little too close, or deciding to celebrate survival in a very bad and very impulsive way. And let's talk about timing, because timing matters. Ava is single. Her last flirtation fizzled out in humiliating fashion. She was left hanging, and she is probably still irritated over how abruptly that whole situation ended. Nobody likes feeling discarded, and Ava especially does not like feeling like somebody vanished on her. So, emotionally, she may already be in a place where she is more open to a new distraction, even if that distraction is a man she absolutely should not be getting involved with. Drew, meanwhile, is coming off chaos, betrayal, and the collapse of what passed for his marriage. He is angry, bitter, and emotionally unmoored. That does not make him a good romantic prospect, obviously. But on a soap, it does make him ripe for a reckless connection. He is not in a place to choose wisely. He is in a place to choose whatever feeds his ego, supports his agenda, and makes him feel powerful again. Ava could easily check all three boxes. And if we're being brutally honest, the dating pool for both of them is not exactly thriving. Drew has alienated a lot of people. Ava is Ava. Neither one of them is currently positioned for some lovely, clean romance with a shiny, uncomplicated partner. That is not the lane either of them is in. So when two messy, manipulative, socially radioactive characters find common ground, that is often where the show goes. Not because it is healthy, but because it is dramatically satisfying. What is especially interesting is how their character arcs almost seem to be moving toward each other. Drew used to be the solid guy, the dependable guy, the respectable guy. But that version of him has been eroding for a while now, and what is left is someone much harder, much darker, and much more comfortable doing questionable things. Ava, on the other hand, began as far more openly villainous, and over time has settled into a more nuanced place. She is still dangerous. She is still self-serving. But she is no longer operating as pure chaos the way she once did. So, in a weird way, they are meeting in the middle. He has become more ruthless. She has become somewhat more restrained. And that makes them oddly compatible. Drew needs someone who can understand scheming without clutching pearls. Ava needs someone who is not afraid of her sharp edges. Together, they make a disturbing amount of sense. That is why the revenge buddies to bed buddies pipeline feels very real here. It is not about a sweeping love story. It is not about two soulmates finding healing in each other. It is about two people with a lot of enemies, bad judgment, and enough attraction simmering under the surface that once one boundary falls, the rest may go with it. And just imagine the fallout if this does happen. Sonny would hate it. Carly would hate it. Nina would almost certainly have feelings about it, especially if Ava gets more entangled with Drew while Drew is still gunning for Willow and creating more instability around Nina's family. Alexis probably would not be thrilled either, and if Drew and Ava became an actual public item, it could wreck whatever fragile truce exists between Ava and some of the people who currently tolerate her. Poor Charles would talk. People would panic. People would judge. And honestly, half the town would probably assume the two of them were plotting something awful every time they were seen in the same room. The funniest part is they probably would be. That is what makes them so potentially entertaining as a pair. Not because they would become some grand romantic epic, but because they could become a true menace, a disruptive force, a duo that creates trouble just by deciding they are bored. Separately, Drew and Ava are both dangerous in spurts. Together, they could become a full-time headache for almost everyone around them. And if the physical side happens first, which I think is very possible, that only complicates it further. Because then they have to decide whether it was just a one-time thing brought on by martinis, adrenaline, and mutual resentment, or whether there is something more there. On a soap, the answer is almost never simple. One night turns into two. A secret affair turns into real jealousy. A tactical alliance turns into emotional dependence. Before long, what was supposed to be convenient becomes messy, and what was supposed to be temporary starts changing the board in bigger ways. I could absolutely see a scenario where Ava and Drew pull off this Brennan operation, end up alone afterward, decompress over drinks, start laughing about how insane it all was, and then the energy shifts. One look too long. One loaded comment. One flirtation that sounds like a joke until it is not. And suddenly they are crossing a line neither one of them intended to cross at the start of the evening. From there, feelings do not even have to arrive immediately for this to become a major story. Sometimes the most fun soap pairings start with two people insisting there are no feelings involved, while every single thing they do says otherwise. Drew and Ava could easily become that kind of pairing. They tell themselves it is physical. They tell themselves it is strategic. They tell themselves it means nothing. And then jealousy creeps in, protectiveness creeps in, and before long they are acting like a couple even while denying it. Bottom line, Drew and Ava already have the ingredients for something explosive. They have motive. They have access. They have bitterness. They have a shared taste for revenge. And once they start pulling jobs together and helping each other target mutual enemies, the emotional and physical lines are only going to get blurrier. What begins as a wicked little alliance could very easily turn into a full-blown entanglement. And if that happens, poor Charles is not just getting a new hookup. It may be getting a genuinely dangerous power duo, one that could do serious damage while everyone else is still trying to figure out whether they are a joke, a fling, or a real threat.